Hey y'all, I'm LEONI, a full-time painter and content creator, and I'm gonna show you how I make art prints just like this one at home. Okay y'all, so before we get into it, let me just introduce myself really quick. Like I said, my name's LEONI. I'm an abstract acrylic painter. I'm 25 and I currently live in Long Beach, California. I am a full-time artist. I'm coming up on my 1-year anniversary of being self-employed, and it's been such an amazing journey. I have so many tips and tricks to share with y'all, but this is probably one of my most asked questions is how do I create my art prints and all of my other products. So today I'm gonna go through that process with y'all, but before we get into it, I just want to talk about the different ways that you can create art prints. So there's two major ways. You can get them outsourced from a third party and have them shipped to you, or you can print them at home. There's a lot of pros and cons to each option, so I'm gonna tell y'all why I like to print mine from home. So some of the pros for me personally is I like to be able to create prints whenever I need them. Not only do I sell my prints through my online shop, I also do a lot of flea markets, and sometimes I'll sign up for something and I have to go sell that same weekend. So in that case, I need to be able to print a really high amount of prints on the spot. I need to be able to package them and have them ready within a few days. And I've seen some art print shops that are able to ship to you really fast, but for the most part, it's just not fast enough. So I just like to be able to do it on my own when I need it on demand. The second thing about printing from home is it feels so personal. I honestly love nothing more than the process of creating my prints from home, just because I created the painting, I go through the editing, taking the photos, and then I have the final product, which is the art print. I really do love the process itself. Like, this is one that I created this month and I absolutely love it. I have the actual painting right there. There's just something about creating the products that you sell that may not be a true pro or con to printing from home, but I thought I would mention it because it does mean a lot to me that everything I ship out, I worked so hard on. Another pro is that it might be just a little bit more cost efficient. So for me, I calculated using the paper I use and how often I refill my ink, what it costs me to print one print, and it does just fall a little bit underneath ordering from a third party. So while it does take a lot more time, it's a little bit more cost effective. So you really do need to take into consideration which one is more important to you, time or money. Okay, so those are all great pros, but there are some cons. The first one being that there's a really large upfront cost to print at home. So you have to buy your printer, you have to buy your paper, and you have to buy your ink. And the ink can be quite expensive. Some other artists that I know did have trouble with this upfront cost. So what they did is that they would do pre-orders on their website, and using the money that they got from those orders, order from a third party and then ship everything out. That way you know the exact amount that you need and you're not wasting any money, and then you can save your profit and save up for your own setup at home, or you can just continue to order prints. It's all up to you. Another con about printing from home is that you have a size limitation. So I like to print 8x10s and 12x16s at home because that's the largest that I can go. Eventually I do want to print the 16x20s and 18x24s, but I need a new printer for that, and the ones that go up to that size tend to be close to around $1,000, which is crazy expensive, I know. So that's just something to take into consideration as well. Standard printers, you're probably only going to be able to get like 8x10s out of those. If you get the printer that I have, I highly recommend it. It's the Canon IP8720. You can go up to the 12x16s. So if you've thought about all of that and you still want to print from home, I will get into my tutorial. So there's 3 major steps to printing your own art prints at home. The first one is taking photos of the actual art. You can either take photos or you can scan it depending on the size. The second step is to edit that photo or scan that you made and make it print ready. And then the third step is to print the physical copy. So today I'm going to focus on mostly steps 1 and 2, but I will show you the paper that I use at home, the printer that I have, and if you want a more in-depth tutorial of the physical printing process, please let me know. I'm always happy to do that for y'all. Okay, step one of taking photos or a scan of your work. If you are opting towards taking a photo of your work, you definitely need a camera. I've tried it with my phone versus a camera and I promise you it's not the same. I know that our phones are super high tech, especially the new iPhones that are out, and they look really good for stuff like vlogging and recording and really high quality social media content, but it's not going to be a high enough quality for an art print. The camera that I use is the Canon EOS M50. It's the same camera that I use to film my YouTube videos. It was a bit pricey, but there are definitely more affordable cameras out there. If a camera is out of your budget, I would consider making smaller pieces of work. Before I had a camera, I knew that I wouldn't be able to photograph my larger canvases the way that I wanted to. So what I did is I stuck to painting on paper. I would only create in my sketchbook because I knew that I could rip them out and put them into a scanner. This is the scanner that I use. It's the Epson Perfection V39. This is how big it is. It's not too big, but it did fit the pages for my sketchbook. So before my camera, I was sticking to this and it was giving me really clear images. Now, if your work is too big to fit in a scanner or it's on a canvas, you can always go to a professional photographer to get the piece photographed, but it's always up to you. Personally, I love to invest in things, so I decided that a camera would be a really good investment. Not only do I use it to take photos of my work, but I use it to record for YouTube. So on my end, it was just a really good choice. But you can always outsource your work and get someone else to do it. I'll show y'all really quick how I set up for photographs. I use only natural light just because I've noticed when I use my studio lights, the same ones that I use for recording these videos, because the canvases are so textured, you can really see where the light bounces off, and I just find that natural light picks up the best when taking photos of my canvases. So I have a specific spot in my living room that is for picture taking, and it's right next to a window, and I'll just go there around golden hour and I always get perfect photos. Okay, so now that you have your super high quality picture or scan of your work, we're gonna move on to editing. So I have a whole tutorial on Photoshop of my process, so let me put that on for y'all. Okay, so before we get into this, I definitely recommend having your painting close by so that you can check how it looks on the screen to the physical piece. We're going to be doing a lot of color correcting later on, so it's always nice to have a reference. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the photo that I took. Before this, I went ahead and selected the best one. I tried to always pick one that isn't skewed, so it's even on the X and Y axis. So this is the straightest one I can find. And the first thing that we're going to do here is we're going to add another layer, and on that layer add a rectangle. And you're going to try to make the rectangle the same size as your painting. And from here, I'm going to fill in the rectangle with a color that really stands out from the painting, and you'll see why in a second. And quick note, you can definitely tell that I am not a Photoshop expert. Big reminder that if you don't know what you're doing, that search bar up there in the corner, if you forget how to find a tool, is your best friend. But anyways, we're going to lower the opacity on this rectangle so we can see through to the painting. And we're just going to go around and make sure that everything is within the rectangle. This rectangle represents your art print. So make sure that anything that's cut off, you don't mind being cut off. And if you do mind, I'll show you in just a second how I fix that. So for this one, it's just the edges of this girl's hair, so I don't mind too much. So I'm just gonna leave this one as is. But here's another painting that I took a photo of. You can see that it's kind of skewed already. I didn't really get a good straight on photo of this one. So what I'm going to have to do is skew the photo to match up with the square. This one is going to be a square print, so I'm just going to edit the dimensions really quick to make sure it's even. And then I'm going to do the same thing, lower the opacity so that I can see through to the painting. And you can see when I do set this that the bottom of the painting is being cut out. and I really don't want that. As I was painting this piece, I already realized that I didn't save enough room for the foot and the hand, so I don't want to cut off even more in the print. So what I'm doing is I'm going to layer 0, the painting layer, and I'm just skewing it so that it fits better into the square and less gets cut off. Sometimes with skew, it is a bit tricky. For the most part, you can move in pretty small increments like I am here, but it can kind of snap into place sometimes, which is kind of annoying. But for the most part, it's pretty easy to work with. So you can see here I can get pretty close, and then the foot and the hand there at the bottom are all included in the print. Here you can see that snapping I was talking about. It's kind of annoying. I'm trying to get the corners to match up, but it's not letting me, so I'm just going to leave it alone, especially because nothing's really being cut off there. But back to the original. Now that we have the rectangle, you're going to take your magic wand tool and select outside of the rectangle. Then you're going to go to layer 0, the painting layer, and click delete, and it will delete that highlighted area. And you can either delete the rectangle layer or you can just take the view off and you'll be able to see your print. So now that I'm at this point, I'm going to go back to layer 0, the painting layer, and I'm going to crop it and just take out these transparent borders really quick. And once I'm done with that, you just click enter and you're good to go. And I'm going to go into adjustments. So playing around with the different settings. For the most part, I always like to brighten up my paintings. And I always do that because my printer always prints darker than my MacBook screen. I've tried to configure my screen, but honestly, I'm not really a techie and I'm not really good with that stuff. So I have just learned the relationship between my computer and my printer. I know what prints darker, what prints lighter. And so I keep that in mind, and I have the painting next to me, and I just try to get it as accurate as possible. So I'm just playing with the colors here, you can see. And one other thing I always like to do, regardless of how the painting looks, is I always like to play with the whites and the blacks. So I'll always make my white super bright, and I like to deepen those blacks because they just look really, really good. Taking a while here. Okay, so now that I'm done editing it, I'm going to save this as the original copy. So you're going to see me save it as BMF. That's short for Black Market Flea. This painting I actually painted live at the flea market, which was so fun. But I'm saving it as BMF OG, the OG file. This is the big one. And what I'm going to do to make prints is I'm going to duplicate it. So I'm going to start with my 5x7. And I always create a new file for each print size because I don't want to have to worry about resizing it each time I want to print something out. So first I delete off that rectangle because we don't need it, and I'm going to resize layer 0. I like to have a 0.25 border on my prints, so I take off 0.5 from the width and the height. So for 5.7, for example, you can see I put 4.5 by 6.5. And that way when I print it out, the borders are just there for me. I would rather do that than mess around with the print settings and get the border right. This is a lot easier in my opinion. So I'll just go through that again. We're going to duplicate it, and here I'm going to do, I believe, an 8x10. And first step, you're going to delete that rectangle layer because you don't need it. And then you're going to go on layer 0 and do Command-Shift-I, and that's to resize. I'm going to do 7.5 by 9.5 to get those 0.25 borders in. And then huge, huge, huge thing, the resolution. It needs to be at least 300, okay? And then for resample, I'm doing reduction because it's going from like 2,000 or whatever inches down to 8 inches. Or down to 7.5 inches, that is. And so I'm just going to keep saving these. And then the last one is going to be my 12x16. But y'all have seen the process already, so we are good to go. But I do just want to emphasize that I have different files for each size, because at some point in the future, I'm going to want to create larger prints of that painting, like an 18 by 24. And if I were to save it as an 8 by 10, I went straight into it and I just sized it down to 8 by 10. If I didn't save the original large copy, later on when I try to size up that 8 by 10, it just might not come out right. There's probably a way to do it, but if I'm being honest with y'all, I would rather be safe than sorry. I don't really know how to size up smaller things. They always come out fuzzy for me, so I just like to have that original copy saved that I don't mess with. If I need to mess with it, I'll make a copy of it and mess with that. I do have one more thing to show y'all before we move on to the actual printing process. This is how I make print mock-ups. This isn't for physical prints, but I do use mock-ups on my website, and I really like to use them on Instagram because it just looks so clean. I get all of my mock-ups from Creative Market, so if you are looking for something like that, they have lots of frame mock-ups. They have really aesthetically pleasing rooms where you can put painting mock-ups, so you can put your painting into that room and let people imagine how it would look in their own home. That's why I really like to do frame mock-ups, because I really want people to see what the end product looks like. So if the mock-ups don't interest you, you can just go ahead and skip forward to the print process. Okay, so we're here in Photoshop again. This is another print that I've done recently. This is a print I've already adjusted, color corrected, all of that. It's cropped to the right size. So I have a square frame mock-up that I'm going to insert this into. And before I do that, I'm just going to select all layers and copy it, and then we're going to paste it into the frame mock-up. So here you're going to see me select everything. I'm just going to copy it, and I'm going to move to the mock-up. This is what it looks like. And in here, there's a replaceable layer. So you click on that, zoom in, you can see it right there, replaceable. You're going to paste everything into here. And then you're going to have to probably resize everything. But once you save this, because it's a smart object in Photoshop, it will save to the frame mockup. So I'm just going to resize that to the perfect size there. Save it, and then go back to the mockup, and you'll see that it's there in the frame, and it looks so good, y'all. So there it is. You can choose to have that the border within the frame. I choose to not have it. I think it just looks a lot better that way. At least online it does, just because it's more bold, but whatever you want to do. There's lots of preset frames in these packages. I always choose one that has multiple types of frames, just in case I want to switch it up. If you don't like the preset frames, you can also choose a frame color of your own. But this gold looks really good with this one, so I'm going to stick to that and just export it. And when I do export these, I make sure to have that transparent background, and I always size it to a square. So when I'm trying to insert it on stuff like Canva, and I'm making like Instagram reel covers or putting it on my website, it's perfectly centered. I just like having everything as a square. So you'll see I'm just saving that there, and you're good to go. It literally, once you get used to the process, you can create these within a few minutes if you have the art print already edited. So now that you have your file of your art print all ready to go, you can, just like I said, send it to a third-party person to print it for you, or you can print it at home. So I'm really quickly just gonna tell y'all all the equipment that I use to print at home. So first thing, I'm just gonna go over the paper that I use. I have two different types of paper, but I think that they're both really, really good options. So the paper that I started with, and I still do use for some sizes, is the Staples Ultra Premium paper. This is it. This one is out of its packaging just because I lost it, but This paper is really good quality. It's really thick and it comes with a lot in the pack. So this big one is a 13 by 19, but what I like about the Staples paper is if you pick it up in the store, they can cut it for you. So I only have a really small paper cutter, so I can cut these 8.5 by 11s into 8 by 10s myself at home, but I can't cut these because my paper cutter isn't big enough. So for $2, they will cut these to size. So all of these are cut into 12 by 16. You can see it's a lot smaller than the box because they did it for me. And then I just have a huge pack, perfectly sized, ready to go. And on my computer, I have a print setting saved for a 12 by 16 sized paper. So it prints out exactly how I like it with the 0.25 borders. The Staples paper is super bright and it doesn't have any texture on it, so I feel like it's a great starter paper. I used it for 2 years before I started to look for a thicker paper. What I have been experimenting with is this, I have no idea how to say it, Han Mule fine art paper. This stuff is amazing. It feels like a really thick page of a sketchbook, if you know what I'm talking about. It almost feels like a watercolor page of a sketchbook. It's super, super special, y'all. I love it. It's not as bright as the Staples paper. It does have a warmer tone to it, and it is textured. It feels really nice and thick. When I make prints on this paper, I get so excited to ship them out because I just know that the people receiving them are like, wow, it's such good quality, y'all. If you don't mind spending a bit more, I would definitely recommend this. But maybe start with the Staples paper just to start an experiment, and then you can go on to this more expensive paper. As for the printer, like I said earlier, I do use the Canon IP8720. I love that printer. It does go all the way up to my 12 by 16 prints, which is just perfect. For the ink, I only use the Canon inks. I have not tried to use third-party ink before. I have seen reviews of other people using that ink and the color payoff just wasn't as good. So for now, I'm gonna stick with Canon, but if y'all have any recommendations for third-party ink, I'm always open to it. But the printer is made to use Canon ink, so it's always a bit safer to go that route. And the last part of the art prints is their packaging. So all of the packaging I do get from clearbags.com. I get the fold over bags. They're about ½ an inch larger than the actual print, just so that it has room to move around. And then I also get a white cardboard backing. So this is how I sell my prints at the flea markets. If you order them from my shop though, they're not like this. They're rolled up in a, what are they called? The tube mailers, but I can do a whole video on packaging and shipping art prints and other products. But if you are looking for some really good quality packaging, I really do like Clearbags. Clearbags also has these really cute photo holders. You can see how thin they are. You can fit, I would say, almost 10 4 by 6 prints in here. I just put about 3 or 4 and I sell them as mini packs. People love these. But I'm gonna bring them back later on in the year because I'm still trying to figure out how to get the label to look a little bit better. It looks a little janky, a little homemade, so I'm just working on that. But this packaging is really, really cute too. Okay, y'all, that is my process of how I make my art prints from home. If you have any questions, please let me know. If there's anything in the video that you want me to dive deeper into, I'm totally down to do it. Just let me know. Other than that, this was really fun. I usually do vlogs on my channel, but I really like doing the tutorial stuff. I definitely want to continue try to help y'all as much as I can. So just please let me know what y'all want to see, and I will see y'all next week. Bye, y'all.